Hello, this is your Reformed English Functional Skills Reading Lesson 3. And this lesson will focus on questions 2, 5, 9, 11, and 13. And we'll do a quick review of questions 1, 7, 10, and 14. First of all, the review of questions 7, 10, and 14. These are the questions that focus on the presentational features and the language features. And as previously said, they are also called the layout features and the literary features. Remember them? So what do you call these? The headline, column, paragraphs, images? Do you remember? Presentational features, right? Can you remember what you call these ones? Rule of three, direct approach, direct address, hyperbole, exaggeration. We've got idiom, colloquial expressions. There we've got onomatopoeia. We've got rhetorical question, imperative. What do we call these? Language features or literary features. Then let's look at reviewing question 1. So question 1 is the skimming and scanning question, but as I stated up there, it's required for the whole paper, not just for question 1. So do you remember what skimming is? It's to get the main gist or the main idea of a piece of text. And to do that, you use the pictures, headlines, and subheadings. You concentrate on the first paragraph and the last paragraph, and the first line of each paragraph. And then scanning is to look for specific information, keywords in the piece of text. Here's a skimming and scanning exercise that was also in the previous lesson. So here are the steps. Take an article, that's not too short, and give yourself 3 minutes to read it. Write down what you remember and read the article again and check that against your writing to see if you got the main idea and the gist of the article. This is a very useful idea to see if you are good at skimming and scanning and to improve that technique. For question 13, there are a few techniques that I want to show you about comparing and contrasting texts, or to compare and contrast texts. Okay, so this is one technique. You can draw this on a piece of paper. If you're learning this technique for the first time, it might be a good place to start. So then you summarize ideas from the one text in the one circle, summarize ideas from the other text in the other circle, and then check which part actually overlap. What information can you find in both of them? Okay, but to answer the question, you will have to summarize the ideas from both texts and state which text you're referring to. So you need to give some quotations from each text, and then you can use ellipses to shorten the quote. Now, a lot of people these days talk about ellipses. They call ellipses the 3 dots, but really it's called ellipses. So there's a new word for you maybe. Now, another way to compare two texts is, of course, you're going to look at the ways they are the same and the ways they are different. So here are 4 steps. Start by reading the first text through, carefully picking out the main ideas and points. So it sounds similar to the previous one. But what is different here is you go step by step. Then you take the second text. At the end of the first paragraph of the second text, you say to yourself, did it say something similar to what was in the other text? And then you write it down. And you go through the second text like that, paragraph by paragraph. And at the end, you go back to the first text and you search it to find out whether it says something similar or different to what you've just read in the second text. And once you found your answer, you go to read the other paragraphs in the second text and repeat step 3. So you keep repeating Step 3. So these are both techniques that you can try and see which one works best for you. This is to show you what question 13 will look like, okay? So it's 6 marks in total. For example, compare similar ideas from text A and text C about the effect of using laptops, tablets, and mobile phones on the way people behave. Now, the question will always be stated in a very similar way. It can also refer to differences instead of similarities. So be careful to check if it's asking for similarities or differences. So there it says, give 2 similarities and 1 quotation from A and 1 quotation from C. Okay, so here are some notes to help you to answer this question. So this is the one where if you get, please make sure you are referring to the right text, otherwise you get no marks at all. Okay, so you're really going to make it difficult to pass if you don't get your marks in this question, because it's the biggest allocation of marks in the paper. Here, so I've got the texts here that we can do the exercise together. So you've got text A and text C. So again, what you can do is pause the recording and you can go back and forth to check, okay? So you can see this one is called Television Viewing Habits in the UK and Time to Dial Down Digital Use. Can you remember what dial down digital, what literary feature or language feature that is? Alliteration, yeah, the D. Okay, so what you need to do is go back to the previous slide, read the texts, then go back one more and answer the questions. Or first read the question, then read the text, then go back to the questions, answer the questions, and then come back to this page to check your answer. Because here's the answer from the mark scheme. So that's what the examiner will use to mark with. And then the other one, the model answer, is an answer that was worked out by a teacher. So you can see there in the model answer that she starts with both texts claim that blah, 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 blah. And then both texts argue that blah, 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 blah. And she refers to the different texts in brackets. And she uses quotes, right? And she uses ellipses, like she said. And so, yeah, so when you have text that, when the question asks you for similarities, it's best to start your answer with both texts claim, or both texts argue, exactly like she does here. This section is about questions 2, 5, 9, and 11. And it's about tone, bias, and inference. Question 2 is about the writer's voice, or the tone of the text. It's not what you said, it's how you said it. So here are some examples of ways to describe the writer's tone, okay? When you have to analyze the texts for the exam, you have to think about the tone that is used by the writer. And you can recognize this tone, or you can say the writer's attitude, by the language and the word choices used. The language will reveal the writer's perspective or opinion about the subject. And when you can recognize the author's tone in a text, it will help you to gain a better understanding of what the author is actually trying to say. And then you will know that if you identify their stance on the subject, you will know that what they are saying is 100% reliable. Tone is the writer's attitude towards a subject or character or audience, and it's conveyed through the author's choice of diction, imagery, figurative language, details, and syntax. So every possible aspect of language that the author has in their toolbox to put across what they are trying to communicate, whatever that is. So tone is also how the author feels about his or her subject, character, or audience, and how the author shows it through the word choices and how they are put together. So again, here are some words that can describe tone in addition to what was shown before. Nervous, happy, excited, angry, etc., etc. So question 11 is about bias. You need to identify whether the writer is neutral on an issue or takes sides against it, right? Because bias is prejudice, preference, or inclination, and it inhibits fair judgment. It's subjective as opposed to being objective. And here's a nice demonstration of it. Subjective is when you are influenced by your past experiences, and objective is not allowing bias to affect your judgment. Now, the thing is, in general, people write from a subjective point of view. And that's why I also mentioned this in the lesson about fact and opinion, because opinion, and there I said that opinion is subjective and facts are objective, yeah, scientific. They can be proven, yeah, facts. Opinions are influenced by emotions, but there it also says influenced by past experiences. Now think about this. How is it that people can witness the same accident all with their eyes open and each account will be different despite the fact they all saw the same thing? Bias is like wearing sunglasses. There's some nice Ray-Bans there, yeah, to demonstrate this. Because the sunglasses represent your past experiences, how you were reared or brought up as a child, and your previous learning up to this point. So because of bias, two people can look at the same thing and have completely different opinions on it. So bias in writing. Can you think of any texts that are biased in nature? What about media reports, the news, any type of news, printed, online, news reports, on the radio, on TV? What about persuasive writing? What is persuasive writing? Do you think persuasive writing is biased in nature? Maybe if they're trying to sell you a holiday to the Maldives versus Chile, saying why you should go to the Maldives. Advertising and marketing language is generally persuasive in nature, don't you think? Now we can recognize bias in writing by the following: emotional responses, opinions stated as facts, missing information, exaggerations, one-sided views, positive or negative word choices, stereotypical comments, and no consideration for the other side. Questions 5 and 9 are about inference. Once bias, opinion, and fact have all been recognized within a text, we can reach conclusions based upon evidence and reasoning. These conclusions take into account the various elements of texts, and that is what we mean by inference, what we can infer, yeah? So, in order to look at inference, we need to think about the background knowledge of the writer or the article, the clues that we see in the text, like, for example, the tone and the bias, right? Bias, tone, opinion, and fact, okay? Then we have to fill in these missing gaps, and using that information, we have to arrive at a point where we can infer that the writer is trying to say what. Okay, so here is an explanation of what the examiner is looking for in question 5 and in question 6. Okay, so it says there that the question 5 gives you 2 phrases from the text, and asks you to choose a phrase related to a specific thing. You have to think about the vocabulary of the writer, then explain the meaning of the language in your own words. The meaning is not to be found in the dictionary. When you look up the dictionary definition of the words in question 5, you might answer completely incorrectly. It's about the words in the context of the text. Okay? And then question 9, you need to find 2 quotations that make the same point as the words in the question, but use a different language. Okay? So again, as we said before, inference is based on background knowledge of the writer, clues in the text, filling in the missing gaps, and then using the given information. Now you should know how to compare 2 texts, what tone is and how to identify it, what bias is and how to identify it, and what inference is and how to identify it. And if you don't know, go back and check that section again until you understand what it is and how to identify it in texts. Good luck.